All right. It's been a few weeks since I uploaded a vlog. I apologize for that. I need to be more consistent with that, and I've had a lot happen over the last couple weeks, so there's plenty to talk about. So I'm going to get right into it. So last we heard, I was going to Poland to Katowice for the big gaming tournament for League of Legends, and that was an awesome experience. I really enjoyed the travel, going alone and traveling by train, by plane, by bus. I hit it all. A taxi got ripped off by a taxi driver. It was, the full gambit of traveling. I did it and really, really, really enjoyed it. Going to Poland was really fun. The aspect of traveling alone was at first a little bit daunting, but at the same time, I always enjoy a challenge. That's one of my favorite words in the English language, and it ended up being a really great experience to go and do it, and now to be able to come back and say, "Yep, I went to a totally foreign on the other side of Europe country all by myself, and succeeded across these different modes of transportation, and needing to be in the right place at the right time in the really early morning, and it was awesome, and the event was great. Again, the IEM event is the Intel Extreme Masters League of Legends Championship, where they had teams from around the world competing, from South Korea, from Taiwan, from Europe. So there was a widespread, group that was there, as well as Hong Kong. And being there is a truly unique experience. Going to a gaming tournament is just as exciting and just as atmospheric as being at a professional American football game, or at the tradition and the excitement just by the people who love it of a baseball game. Or even of a soccer match, because when the games got going, we were chanting for the players. We would be getting rowdy for the plays that were happening. So it even felt a bit like a soccer, or as they would call it here, a football match as well. And so that was really enjoyable to be around so many other people who loved playing the same game that I love playing, and enjoy watching the players who do it better than anyone else in the world, pretty much. And to do that is just as spectacular to see, going to a game where you see, Tom Brady squaring off with Aaron Rodgers. That's kind of what this was like. It wasn't the top teams, because a few of them weren't able to come for different reasons, but it was just as meaningful, right? Because these guys are still so good, and when you're someone that plays the game and you understand the level of competition that's here, the level of skill that's required to play the way they do, it's actually extremely impressive. And these guys definitely deserve to be called athletes just as much as anyone else, because they put in just as much work, and they travel across the world to play. So that was really, really cool to be in that atmosphere with all of the fans. And it's a solid day of games. You get in at 10 o'clock, and the games start around noon, and Saturday they went till 6 or 7, and then on Sunday, due to some technical delays, the game started at noon and went until almost midnight, when they finally crowned the champion. And it's definitely dedication to be a fan of esports, and I was really happy to be there around so many other people who were, because that can tend to be something where people get ostracized, or like, oh, you're a gamer, you're like, what a nerd. Like, to be there with a whole bunch of other nerds, it was cool to be the nerd there. So that was really an awesome time. Met a good couple of people who I sat with both days, who spoke English but were Polish natives, and got to learn a lot about the country from them, learn about the area of Katowice a little bit, and so that was great. Came away with a couple of friendships there, and so I really enjoyed Poland. That was a great trip. I'm really, really glad that I went. Then, not this last weekend, but the weekend before, I was in Scotland. That was the beginning of spring break. We had our field trip to Edinburgh, or Edinburgh if you say it how it's spelled, but it's pronounced Edinburgh. and that is a really cool city because it's pretty big, and there's so much history in it. It's all the architecture is obviously, you know, hundreds of years old, but they still built really high as far as upscale, like urban types of buildings. They would build, you know, hundreds of years ago, you know, 6-7 story big, you know, like blocks of flats, of apartments. So that was really interesting. We got to go up on the highest hill in Edinburgh, and I should have some pictures at the end of this video, by the way, of both Poland and Edinburgh, and my experience in Fort William hiking out there. So stay tuned for that at the end of the video. I should have that with a little bit of narration just to say what's what. And if not, I'll have some captions on the video if I'm not able to get a full narration on there, but there should be pictures at the end. So stay tuned for that. But going there, we got to go to this top hill, and you can see all the way around Edinburgh out to the harbor side of Edinburgh on, you know, the eastern edge of the North Sea, and then the inland side looking towards the mountains of the Highlands. Really, really cool perspective there, and got to see the city. The Castle of Edinburgh is really big and has a lot of history in it. It's basically a bunch of like museums in it now at this point, and so touring that was really cool. Stayed overnight there with another student named Cole, who was going to be coming with me to the other side of Scotland, in the Highlands, in the west of Scotland. And so we stayed overnight in Edinburgh, and then it was train time. And to get to where we wanted to go, which is a city called Fort William on the west coast of Scotland, it was a fair amount of trains. We took a train from Edinburgh to Glasgow, and then that was only about an hour. That's a pretty easy train. And then from Glasgow to Fort William, it's almost 4 hours of train. It's through beautiful territory. You get to see as you go from the lowlands of Glasgow up into the Highlands, where all of the mountains are, and you pass by the big lochs, which are their word for lakes, and they typically tend to be really long and like ovally, right? Versus being really, really round a lot of the time. So the lochs are kind of in the valleys between the mountains that rise up around them. Extremely picturesque. And eventually got to Fort William, hopped into my hostel, and was ready for a hike come Sunday, because we went to Edinburgh on Friday, stayed overnight, then traveled Saturday, and on Saturday night stayed over in Fort William for our hike on Sunday. Me and Cole both worked with a gentleman named Andy Davidson in Scotland, and his guiding company is cleverly named Up and Doon, with the Doon spelled D-O-O-N, like the accent, the way that they say down. And that was awesome. Oh my goodness, it was great. We went about 20 miles north of Scotland to a walk that takes you from essentially the edge of the highway. You just park in a little lay-by on the highway and get out and start on this path, and you make your way between some smaller mountains and along stream beds and into a small section of forest, and finally you pop out on the other side and you are on the edge of a ancient, relatively, settlement that used to be there, and there's one surviving house, and it's purposely surviving, it's maintained, and it's called a bothy. And they have these scattered all over Scotland, and what they are is they're maintained little shacks, basically. They're small stone houses, essentially, that have basically just bunk spaces that are like flat wooden panels, right? You can throw a sleeping bag on there, and they're there for hikers and campers to have a place to stay the night when they're moving through the area, and they're just scattered around. Every so many miles you'll find them near railroad tracks or through different paths that have been blazed across the highlands, and people are welcome to stay there as long as they, you know, leave it as they found it and respect anyone else that stays there at the same time. Little fireplaces in there, and this one was right on the coast of a large bay that leads out into the Atlantic Ocean, and you can see a couple of the big islands off the coast of Scotland from there, and the mountains rise up around the edge of the bay. Really spectacular views. Again, I should have some pictures of those at the end, so look for that. I'll describe those when they come up. And that was awesome. The hike was hard. It was a solid 7-mile hike, so it was, you know, good 3.5-ish in. I think we ended up taking about 8 miles worth of hike because we detoured and went up a small mountain, which was awesome. We went up just a 220 meter, you know, as he would call it, a wee hill. For me, it was, you know, like, well, I'm from Minnesota. We don't have mountains. This is a mountain to me, considering that the best we have is Spirit Mountain in Duluth, and that's basically just kind of like a gradual rise, and then it's mostly just because Duluth is on sea level. So being there when there's all these spectacular peaks around you was really cool, and getting to ascend even a smaller one was still an achievement, and I really enjoyed doing that. And it was tough trekking, but it was also really rewarding, and I'm really glad that I went. And so then went back to Fort William after that and hung out at the hostel, met a group of hikers from Germany who were doing a really massive expedition. They were hiking first from Glasgow to Fort William, which is a popular hike along. There's a path, you know, that's between those two places. That's a known walk that people do. That's a multi-day trip. And then they were going from Fort William to a location in northeastern Scotland called Aviemore, which is near Inverness, is the biggest city it's near. And that is another long expedition. That's a good, I think, 6 or 7 day walk, unless you really, really hit it hard, because it's a good almost 100 miles between those two locations, Fort William and Aviemore. So if you really go hard and you can somehow do like 20 miles a day through this terrain, then you could do it in 5 days. Otherwise, you'd take more like a week or 9 days or something like that to hike. And you just camp either with a tent, or you stay in bothies along the way. And so they were pretty ambitious. They were pretty cool, though. It was really fun because they knew English. You know, just played Yahtzee for a couple hours and got to know them a little bit. And the two people who also stayed in my room with me, the couple of nights that I was there, also hung out with us and learned a lot from them. They were a couple of British guys from Bristol, which is in southern England, and had a great time getting to know them and learning about their area of England and everything. It was super enjoyable. Hostels are really fun if you stay and look to try and talk to people. And not all hostels are created equal. I will say the hostels I stayed in Poland were not that great, because most of the people staying there were Polish or Serbian, and they didn't speak English, and there wasn't a huge amount of like friendliness there. But at the backpackers hostels I stayed in Edinburgh and in Fort William, just incredible, the amount of friendliness and how open everybody was to chatting and getting to know each other and having a good time. Really, really recommend staying in especially backpackers or hikers hostels, those kinds of ideas, those places, because the people there are really there to go out and explore and meet people, and so it was really enjoyable. Excuse me. So had a great time with that, and so I do need to wrap this up. This is almost 15 minutes, and I still need to get some pictures in. So I do want to give a huge shout out to the people back in St. Cloud, Jay Freezy, Brogan, everybody watching back on the honors floor. Really appreciate you guys keeping up with me and pushing me to make these videos and make them better. I really do appreciate that, and so want to give you a shout out, and look forward to hearing back from you guys on what you think of the video and my travels. And can't wait to keep giving you more updates. I will be doing this either every week or every 2 weeks, much more frequently. And so coming up tomorrow, we're going on our field trip to 2 places, one called Beamish and one called Durham. Beamish is the site of this huge, essentially outdoor museum of what they've done is taken a huge, like 100 or 120 acres, and they've taken and disassembled historical buildings from other areas around Britain and literally transported them brick by brick to Beamish and rebuilt them there. So it's kind of like when you go to a place and they have this is what a pit mine used to look like, and they have like a tiny little interactive exhibit. This is like, you can go into a pit mine there because that was already there, and so they built around it. Or you can go into an old Methodist chapel there that was rebuilt from another place to there, and so you could see the real deal versus it being just a small, like, this is what it would have looked like. This is like actually what it was. So that's going to be pretty cool. Durham is the site of the second big cathedral in northern England besides York, and it's spectacular. If you look it up on Google, it's a really magnificent building. Can't wait to go there. I'll get some pictures and try to show them in my next vlog, so that's going to be great to see that. And with that, I'm going to lead into some pictures after this, but I'll sign off for now, and thank you all for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. And here I am with the Fnatic Trophy, a famous esports organization that has existed for many years and has won in countless esports in world championships. And then here's the crowd in the big Spodek Arena in Katowice with all our flashlights on during one of the breaks between games, and everyone gets out their phones. And here's a photo of one of the teams as they were set up on stage. The other side of the stage was just a mirrored image, and they're all set up there right there. You can see them all as they react. And then I was able to grab a couple pictures with a couple of the pros. This guy's named Xerxes is his gamer tag, and his name is Vizichachi. There are a couple of the pro players. And this is a quick photo of the winning team, the Taiwanese Flash Wolves. They took home the trophy at the end of the tournament. And a cool picture of a sign I found in Katowice. And now we move on to Edinburgh. Here's a couple of pictures from the top of the tall hill in the middle of Edinburgh. And you can see I took a couple of pictures leading out into the harbor section of the town, more the industrial side. And here they have a huge, like, semi-Parthenon imitation set of pillars up, and so got up on that, grabbed a picture. That's me just with my arms folded in the middle, silhouetted, and now into the Highlands. Here's one of the beautiful locks with the mountains rising up on either side. Absolutely picturesque. It's amazing there. And now we get into the hike. We were able to cross over just a small footbridge over this railway that comes through. It would be amazing to ride on a train through this. And then we continued. We gained a fair amount of elevation, and you can see the mountains poking into the clouds. Absolutely beautiful here. And this, you can see we're walking in that stream bed actually, because everything else is pretty mossy and gross. So walking up through that, just sticking to the rocks. And here's a view down into the valley and the loch where we were on our way to, where we would eventually turn around. And there is what's called a bothy. It's a small house that people live in for single nights or a couple of nights for campers and hikers that are scattered all across Scotland. And here's a view from the shore just down from the bothy. It was set up basically on the shoreline, and you can see next stop is America through that that gap. And we saw a couple of deer along the way, a couple red deer just viewing us from safe distance. And then we got to the top of this 200-meter Our guide called it a wee little hill, but for us it was a pretty big undertaking just to be up that high, coming from Minnesota, and got some spectacular images looking back down into the valley where we came from, and you could see there's a little pond up there and another lake that's just up in elevation on top of this little plateau. Absolutely gorgeous. The views I will not forget ever. And here's the other side. There's another lock bay that comes in, and there's a little house there and the railway. Absolutely beautiful up here. And a great shot of our guide Andy on the bottom, and Cole, my friend who came with, to the left, overlooking this elevated lake. And a couple last images of me. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope this turned out pretty well as far as the video editing and the photos go. Stay tuned for more, and I'll continue taking these kind of pictures and sharing them with you. Thanks.